Hello, I'm Candy, and welcome to this episode of the Backstage Pass. I've been so fortunate to speak with incredible guests from the performing arts industry, and I thought now would be just the perfect opportunity to pull together all the highlights of the first year. I couldn't choose them all, so I picked the moments that have had a lasting impact on me. And if you haven't heard them all yet, I'm sure this episode, packed full of goodness, will have the same impact on you. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so I'm going to start with a guest who was actually one of my first episodes, the absolutely fabulous Daredevil Diva, and one of my really, really good friends, Daniela Deville. In this highlight, Daniela talks about how lucky she is to come across the world of cabaret, circus, and danger acts, and takes us on a journey of what it feels like to be a performer. She is a true inspiration, and it was such an incredible chat. It's also quite interesting how much I've changed in terms of my conversation, and the visual, if you're watching, is very, very different to how it is now, but it's still amazing. Let's go.
I'm made for the entertainment industry. I knew that about myself, but I think I'm a bit different to everyone else and I need to find my niche. I think I was so lucky to have the opportunities I had with the Circus of Horrors at the start of my career, because it really gave me a bit of an education into what other options are out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I left college, I didn't know about the world of cabaret and variety and all these wonderful opportunities that are out there. So as I learned more about the industry, I realized this is definitely where my place is. And the danger acts just came with, my first danger act was the Bed of Nails. And the reaction I got from the audience was quite addictive. If I see a video of myself, I'm not watching me. My favorite thing is to watch the audience reaction. You see people with looks of horror on their faces, or just they're amazed, they've never seen anything like it before, or they're interested. Some people are hoping it will go wrong, definitely.
Oh, do you think so?
I think some people enjoy the little bit of the danger aspect of like, I might see something go wrong here. You know, that morbid fascination. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I had a woman, I really thought I was quite concerned. I could see her from the stage. I was thinking, she's not enjoying my show. She kept covering her eyes. She was wincing. She looked so nervous and uncomfortable. And I was thinking from the stage, I can see you sometimes. And I was thinking, oh no, she really doesn't like me. And I felt bad. And then when I took my bow at the end, she stood up and gave me a standing ovation and was cheering louder than anyone. That wasn't what I was expecting. So
possibly just a very expressive person.
Possibly.
Fully invested in every tiny little thing you were doing.
I think the addiction to danger came with, I love seeing people's reaction to it. With any of my acts, the first thing I do is learn the skill. So, for example, if it were whips, I make sure I can do all my whip cracks. My accuracy is perfect. Can I whip a flower off my head perfectly? Can I whip a flower out your hand perfectly, out your mouth, etc.? Okay, so you've got the skill perfected. How do you make it an act? Do you want to put a theme to it? What's the music that you feel inspired to work to? Is there a dance routine that goes in it? What's the costume like? Is there a gimmick that goes with it? Is there a storyline? So there's a big difference between just having the skill and then making it into a full act. So I generally will just start with the skill. And then once I have the skill perfected, then I can do the fun, creative bit.
So what's the next step after you've learned the skill? Is it the music?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
So the skill first, and then what music inspires me. And once you just hear a track and you know.
I guess you could see the design of your costume and the counts that you're going to be doing certain things.
Yes. Yeah. I love a track that builds and has explosive moments. And I'll literally, when I find the right bit of music, I'll just sit shut my eyes and visualize, and then it all comes together. I'm going to have to say the highlights of my career haven't been the big glory shows, like the massive theatres. They've actually been working in traditional Victorian style sideshows and freak shows. That's when I started with Circus of Horrors. We would go and do a freak show at the Great Dorset Steam Fair, and it's hard work. You go outside and you bark, which is when you say like roll up, roll in, it's showtime, and you sell your tickets. And then you go in and you do like a half an hour show, you go back out, you sell tickets again, and you do that all day.
Wow.
It's hard graft. It's how they did it back in Victorian times. Sometimes you end up doing as many as 12 shows a day. It's exhausting. And then you'll eat hog roast off the hog roast stand next door. You will sleep in a tent or a caravan and do it all again the next day. It's hard graft, and I absolutely love it. And that was the first one I worked in. Then we had one along South Bank near the London Eye for a few years.
I came to one.
You did?
I actually remember when I was talking to you and you said, "Oh, hang on a second," and then you stood up and started barking.
Yes.
Roll up, roll in. I was like, "Oh my God, how is she doing that?" To just have the confidence to just get up and just... It was insane. It was just like you were there, you were working, you were grabbing everyone's attention, you were getting them in for that show.
I love that challenge. I love it. And then I went out to Australia and worked with Sideshow Wonderland. I went out there quite a few times to work with them, and it was the same thing. And we would do like the Adelaide Fringe and Woodford Festival. Same thing. It's called spruiking over in Australia rather than barking. You spruik, you do a show, and you do it again and again and again. And genuinely, working with shows like that has been the highlight of my career. I love it. Even more than TV appearances or, big arena shows. I love the old school ones like that.
Next up is former principal dancer with the Birmingham Royal Ballet Company, the lovely and warm and just wonderful person, Dorcas Walters. Much of our chat I found to be really, really impactful, especially discussing a dance teacher's approach and maybe how they need to think about coaching in terms of life coaching. I thought that was a really, really amazing thing that she put forward in the conversation. Also, a biggie was the starving herself in order to survive in the industry and the negative impact that it had on her. It was a very important section of the podcast to listen to. And although there's some difficult stuff in there, I hope that you really, really enjoy it. And I've taken so much from this, and it's made me think about dancers and teachers in a whole new light. So a special thank you to Dorcas.
But I don't know whether the ballet world has done that much to try and work out what they have to do to make it better. So, yes, there's an acknowledgement that you're not supposed to bully people.
Yeah.
But how do you train teachers to not just repeat the way they were taught, to not repeat the abuse that they suffered? Maybe it worked for them, and so they think, it's a tough career. You've just got to be tough, sink or swim. That,
yeah.
And it's an artistic career, and there's more to it than just being tough. And I don't know whether there is enough training for. I feel like every ballet teacher should have coaching training.
Yes.
Because when you train as a coach, as in a life coach, you have to examine language and means of communication.
Yeah.
And it's really revealing.
Yeah, because there were times when I was stood at the side feeling nervous about a step, and they're going, "Come on, Candy," instead of, if they were to have that training, they would go, "Oh, something's bothering her. Let's find out what it is." But again, do they care enough to explore that.
There's a few jobs and lots of people that want them, and so they can afford the wastage, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's good, because otherwise I wouldn't have a future job to go into.
So several years into my career, so we used to have an interview with the director every year at the end of the year. And every year he would talk about my physique and what was wrong with it, and how much he liked my dancing, but what was wrong with my body, you know? And so, you know, I was constantly kind of starving myself, and then you can't keep it up. You can't do that constantly and manage to dance. So you do it for a bit and you feel good, and then you eat again, and then you feel crap, and you know. So it was round and round, really, until I started to educate myself, and started to really kind of realize that I couldn't keep this up.
Yeah.
You know, this was no way to kind of continue. I started, and there was more was being talked about in the ballet world at this point about nutrition and appropriate diet, you know. And I did eventually say, okay, enough. I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm just going to try to be healthy. But all they really care about is the results in the end. You know, they don't really care how you do it, as long as you achieve the results.
And it's a really hard thing to hear and experience. I mean, I didn't see it firsthand, and I mean, maybe they were just hiding it really well when I was at the school. I didn't see anyone really with eating disorders, and no one really talked about the fact that they were getting poked or told to lose weight. I don't remember it, but maybe they were being very, very quiet about it.
We didn't talk about it.
Right.
I don't remember it being talked about, other than people would kind of say, you know, you could see people looking in the mirror and looking at their bottom and kind of going, you know, you see it, but we didn't talk about it. So I think the people who don't have that issue don't know what's going on. They don't know what's happening with their friends at school and what they're being told.
Feeling very oblivious right now, you know. Sorry to all the people that probably were struggling, and I had no idea.
No, but that's something I've discovered in later years about people I was at school with. You know, that you discovered were unhappy and you didn't realize, because we learn as dancers, we learn how to put a front on, because that's what performing is.
Yes.
You know? When do you stop performing and actually be what's really going on?
Yeah. And what's horrible is you were getting praised for the starving. So you're like, well, this is kind of what I have to do. And it really was a testament to how much they actually care about you looking the part over being a good dancer. Because surely you would have seen the difference between how you dance when you were starving and then when you're eating healthy.
I don't know. I do remember at school having kind of really restricted my eating a lot and feeling weak because of it. Yeah. And something kind of clicked. I kind of went, okay, I maybe can't keep doing this, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, mostly it was the work that, you know, like when I was doing a lot of work, that was when I was able to kind of look okay and eat reasonably well. And it's the problem was when you get told, you know, oh, I can't put you in that, because I mean, I got told that it was very erratic as well. So 1 minute it's like, I can't put you in a tutu. I don't want you in a tutu.
I don't want you. Oh my gosh.
Then the next minute, you know, it's a leotard and tights ballet and you're not in it. And you know, it's because, you know, it's that. And then suddenly you are in the, you know, it was erratic. But yeah, I mean, that's when I was at my best was when I was just doing a lot of work. And then the fitness kind of happens because you're working hard and doing a lot. But usually the reaction was always to take people out of stuff when they were too big. So then how do you lose weight when you're not doing anything?
I mean, that's the most awful punishment a dancer could possibly have.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, you know that the general public out there wouldn't ever have thought that anybody, I mean, they will notice if somebody's really big, but we're almost never talking about somebody that's really big in these situations.
No.
It's relative. And they don't notice that on the whole. They notice how you dance.
Yeah, exactly. That is the most important thing, how you dance. I mean, ballet today is different. It is all about nutrition and longevity and fitness, and so it is better.
I do think things have improved now. It's not, it's never going to go away, because there's always going to be a physical aesthetic attached to the art form.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what kind of write-ups or TV programs are done on it. This is the way it is.
We're striving for perfection, which can't be achieved.
Nope.
And there's an aesthetic. Yes, long legs make a difference to the line. They just do, and we can't change that. But I think within a certain aesthetic, we can have more tolerance, I think, and more care for well-being.
Yeah. So my next chat is with opera-trained cabaret host and singer, Bryony Perdue. This chat I absolutely adored. There were two parts that really, really stood out to me. One being funny things that can happen during a show with a member of the audience. And the other one was hearing her sing. She is phenomenal, and she really, really left me speechless. And I am sure she is going to have the same effect on you.
I know exactly what it is. Okay. And I haven't been briefed on this question in advance, but it happened very, very recently. And there is a very rude word in it, so I won't say it.
I'm fine.
But it's brilliant. It wasn't super busy. And there are circular little tables, and people can have their drinks and food on the tables. And there is a table of two very near the front. And I walk down, and I've done my first song. People are aware that there's about to be burlesque next, whatever's going to happen. And they need a little bit of time to set up. So I go out into the crowd just to talk to people. What's your name? Where'd you come from? That sort of thing. And I went to this lady. I went, lady sitting next to her male friend. And I said, what's your name? And she goes, Lois. And I went, oh, Lois. Lois, you never meet a Lois. Wow. And is this your Superman? And she turns around and goes, no, he's my Clark C-word. And if you know that Superman's alter ego is Clark Kent, I went to the floor, handed her the microphone, and was just like, you just carry on. I cannot improve on that. That is unbelievable. It just came out of her mouth, and she looked surprised at herself. She went, that was good, wasn't it? And I was like, yes, it was very good. So I'm on the floor for about 35 seconds, pull myself together and carry on. But if you want a heckle from an audience member, that is a diamond moment.
Oh my God, yeah. That's so funny.
And so much happens in an evening that actually there are so many details that I wish I could remember that I will have forgotten just by virtue of so much happens every single show that isn't, as I said, there's no script, so there's no plan. So if something happens, it's organic. It's just great, and you go with it. But I have the sort of brain which it goes, oh, that was wonderful. And then the next show, I'm immediately in it again. So I might not super vividly remember, but that one. Lois, wherever you are, you've made a few dinner parties a damn sight more interesting. Well done.
I mean, that's genius, isn't it?
It is.
That's really funny.
It's so quick.
I love that she was surprised by it as well.
She did. She went, no, he's my Clark. I did well there. It was really good. It was really, really good.
Yeah, perhaps she was feeling a little bit angry at him that day.
Yeah,
not Kent today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Needs a stronger word to describe that man. That is so funny.
It's really lovely to be able to think about it all in this way and have the questions that you're asking, because you don't really consider it with such, with actual time taken to talk about it. You don't talk like this unless it's in a setting like this. And you don't talk like this unless you feel really comfortable.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you. This is, it's mutual. The bouncing off is really mutual. It's really important.
Right, so as it's a Christmas special, and I bet so many are eager to hear your beautiful voice, I was hoping that you would sing a song for us. Would that be all right?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I've actually, after what we've been talking about, I think I'll go for a Shirley Bassey, because I think it shows I think what it says is really important, and I think within the cabaret community it covers a lot.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
I'll put it up again. Can't much. I am what I am. I am my own special creation. So come take a look. Give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, hey world, I am what I am. I am what I am. I don't want praise, I don't want pity. I'll bang my own drum. Some think it's nice, I think it's pretty. And so what if I love each sparkle and each spangle? Why not try and see things from a different angle? Your life is a sham till you can say, hey world, I am what I am. I am what I am, and what I am needs no excuses. I deal my own deck, sometimes the ace, sometimes the deuces. It's one life, and it's no return and no deposit. One life, so it's time to open up your closet. Your life is a sham till you can say, hey world, I am what I
Wow. Oh my God. I think I'm lost for words. That's unusual for me.
Oh gosh, here we go.
We're not. I think everyone's going,
And again.
Encore. A definite highlight was my Halloween special with legend Chris Carter. He's known for epic books about detectives chasing serial killers, and he tells his story of starting in criminal psychology, how this path led him to writing, and what makes him a unique writer. This is still the top one to listen to. Brace yourself. This one is incredible.
Didn't know really what the profession would do, how to treat the profession. It was a brand new thing. So at the beginning, we were treated like detectives. We were taken to every crime scene in situ, which is like the victims were still there. So we were like detectives. We were turning up and crime scenes with all the victims still in the crime scene, all the victims dead, because that's what they want us to do. So what we did, obviously, we analyze the scene, analyze the victimology, analyze the level of violence used, and all different kinds of things, the kind of crime, the kind of violence that was used in the crime scene. And that's the thing that a lot of people say, that criminal psychology is always an amazing profession. It's so interesting. It is. But I always tell people, if you think about it, right, we study all those years in university and you go through all that. And our job is to take a guess. We guess. Psychology is not an exact science. 2 plus 2 is not always 4 in psychology. So what we do, we analyze the victimology, analyze the level of violence on the scene, or analyze the scene itself, and then we guess. We think that the person that you're looking for, the person who did this, is so and such and such. So we put them an age bracket, you put all different kinds of things, but it's a guess. At the end, it is a guess. This is
Wow.
not. It's not, and that was a huge problem at the beginning because it was such a new profession. A lot. What happened a lot in America was a lot of police forces. They were taking the word of a profiler as fucking the Bible, right? And there were so many mistakes because if a profiler say, "Look, we think that the guy you're looking for is in between the age of 30 and 40, and he's like a white male, and he's from a middle class family. He probably has a job or he doesn't have a job," and then they found someone who was a suspect and was actually the killer, but it didn't fit into that profile that was given, they will let the guy go, right?
Oh my
This
God.
happened at the beginning. It happened so much.
That's so unsettling.
It was horrible. It was
Wow.
horrible because, again, it was a brand new profession, and then they thought this is gonna save, America, the crime world, and it wasn't. So there was a lot of mistakes at the beginning, but that's when I started. So it was a great profession, very unsettling because, like I said, you were taken to crime scenes, which criminal psychologists nowadays don't. They will read the files, they can take a look at the photographs, they look at the videos that have been recorded, but they don't turn up at the scene. And there's a whole difference. It's like, obviously you can go into the internet now and search, and you will find the most horrific videos and photographs from crime scenes. But it doesn't matter how many videos you watch, how many photographs to take a look at. When you are at the scene, something is different. There's an atmosphere to a crime scene. There's a smell to a crime scene that you cannot portray in any other way. Writing, photographing, filming, you can't get it. So it was a different thing, and we did that for years, like for years, and it was, you could see, is like, that's the thing about that profession, is it's like being a detective, a homicide detective, right? No day is a good day. It's like, even the days that you could help the police apprehend a suspect or something, is still, there's been people have died before you
Yeah.
or after, so somebody
Yeah.
already have died. So every single day, what you're dealing with is pain, is evil, is death, is sadness. That's what you deal with every single day in, day out, day in, day out.
It's very
And
dark.
it just takes, you think, how long can I carry on doing this before I break? Because if that's what you do every single day, you're dealing with that. You're running after criminals, and that's why a lot of detectives that you see in films, they're all angry. That it is because that's what we do. They deal with violence every day, right? And like any, if the environment you live in is a certain way, you start to soak in everything about the environment. So if you live in a violent environment, you will become violent. There's no way you won't become violent,
Hmm.
right? And that's why a lot of detectives, a lot of police officers are violent. They're dealing with violence every single day. Every single day, that's what they deal with. I describe, because again, because I've seen everything. It's like serious. I've been to so many crime scenes, and in America's a different level when it comes to violent crime, like a different level. Like, so you have have crime, you have violent crime, you have ultra violent crime, then you have 50 feet of shit, then you have America right there. It's unbelievable, like what
Oh
they do
God.
over there. So I've seen everything from decapitation, dismembering, a body cut in half, this way, that way,
Wow.
uh, head blended into a pulp, burned alive, anything, gutted,
Oh my
um,
God.
uh, throat cut, everything, every kind of possible horrible thing you can imagine. I've seen. So it's impossible for me to try to write a crime scene that I don't get an image coming to my head,
Mm.
right? So I describe certain things, but I do leave a lot of it out. But then that's when I read other books that I realized why people say that my books are so descriptive. It's just because mine come from memory. Mine is a little bit
Yeah.
more. It comes across maybe a little bit more truthful than the others.
I think
Um,
that's better. I mean, it's you weren't reading books, so you were basing it on your own creation from your own memories. I think it would be highly influenced if you were to read loads and loads of crime books and then come up with a story, because you would maybe unintentionally pinch little
you
bits from other
do.
books, whereas you just went purely from experience,
Yeah,
memory.
and I remember as well when I finished writing the Crucifix Kill, and I gave the manuscript to a friend of mine, and she was an English teacher, so I gave it to her so she would read it to correct all the mistakes and everything. And I remember she called me and said, I gotta read it again. I was like, oh, is it that bad? She goes, no. She said, I got so much into the story that I stopped correcting it. I just wanted to read,
Oh wow.
which was great. But then she
Yeah.
said, but the best thing about you, and she said, you never study creative writing or anything like that. So I said, so you don't respect any of the rules. I say you just write. And she said, and that's, and I was like, and I remember I did this. I was touring and I was in Greece, and the guy who was interviewing me, he was a creative writer teacher, and I pretty much just ended his thing telling people, because I said, look, that's the thing. When you study creative writing, when you study any kind of thing, right? It puts you in a box because you got rules. If you got rules, you got a box. You go, I can't go over this wall because the rule says I can't.
Yeah.
So you write inside a box. And she said, you don't have this. You are writing all over. You going over the walls and stuff. And it's fresh. And when you read it, you go, wow. It's like, I don't respect any of the rules. None of the rules. It's like, who created those rules? It's a book. It's like, and I tell these when people ask me, I said, it's your book. Write the book the way you want to write it, not the way your teacher wants you to write it, not the way your father wants you. It's your book, and that's what in our profession is called your voice. Your voice is how you tell your story, right? And that's what makes it different from others, right? Because I remember when I wrote the book and I sent it out, and I was in a party talking to this girl, and I told her that I had written a book, and she was like, "Oh, really? What is it about?" And I said, "Oh, detectives chasing serial killers." And she was like, "Well, there are so many books about detectives chasing serial killers out there. What makes you think that you're going to get a deal? What makes your book so much different than the others?" And I couldn't answer. I was like, I have no idea. I was like, so probably I won't get it. And then when I got the deal, the book came out, I bumped into her again. She had read the book. And she said, remember that question I asked her? I said, yeah. She said, I can tell what it was. She said, your voice. She said, the way you tell your story is different. She said, you make it very exciting the way you tell. So that's your voice, is the way you tell your story. If you stick to rules and everything, then that's, you're not telling your story the way you want to tell it, right? That's what your voice is. That's why when people ask me, oh, is there a book that you wanted, you wish that you had written? Like, I don't know, um, Hannibal Lecter on the Silence of the Lambs or something. Like, no, because if I had written, it wouldn't have been Silence of the Lambs. The reason why Silence of the Lambs is Silence of the Lambs is because it was written by the author who written. The reason why um, Harry Potter is Harry Potter because it was written by J.K. Rowling. If anyone else wrote that book, the story would come out differently.
It would.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I say. It's like, that's her voice. What made that story incredible is her voice.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what happens to every book. The reason why the book is successful is not only because the story is good, it's because the way the story is told by that author, and that's your voice. So I have no idea what the question was. I talked way too much. I told you to talk too much.
No. It was perfect. It was perfect. I was so inspired by this next guest, a young artist who is ever changing and evolving, and I absolutely adore their approach to the industry and in life. Introducing my favorite moments with drag artist Megan Rain.
That honestly, I don't feel like a lot of drag performers have this kind of mindset, because with drag you have to be very branded, and you have to have a look. But with Megan, I am forever evolving and changing. Kind of like one of my other favorite artists, Madonna, is like always looking for different avenues to take. I think at her core, Megan is very glamorous
Mhm.
to start off with. And I'd like to think she's very exciting. That's how when I started getting into cabaret, I wanted to pick up all these little new tricks. So when I do shows that aren't necessarily in cabaret, and I'm going to more like drag audiences, they're seeing things that they would never have seen.
That's great.
I think she's a bit of a punk rocker, even when she's dripping in ostrich feathers and glass stones. But I mean, one of my favorite numbers that I do is to a Motley Crue song, and I'm coming out as a showgirl drenched in glass stones. See, I think it's honestly probably not the answer I was looking for. A bit of a mystery that I myself don't fully know yet.
I like that
who
though.
She is. Yeah. I like to keep all the doors open. I mean, explore.
It's definitely glamorous, exciting, 100%. And you do have this slight mysterious thing about you, and I think that could be your golden ticket, really.
Yeah.
Because if people are being, this is my brand, this is who I am, putting all cards on the table, there's nothing really left to give. They can learn new tricks, but that is their brand. Whereas you've got so many versatile looks, the makeup, the hair, so different. So you could be so many different types of characters within that one umbrella of Megan Rain. I think that's really, really good. Not limited to anything, just exploring.
And I think the fun thing with that as well is having so many different looks is I can really, depending on how I'm feeling, tap into that. Because sometimes you'll see me covered in latex. Well, I say covered. It's very minimal covered.
Yes.
Sometimes you'll see me in like a gown or something. Like just having different avenues you can really like, which we'll also get into why I love drag so much, is being able to use it as a means of expressing yourself fully with like how I'm feeling that day, which is really amazing. Honestly.
Yeah, that is good that you can be that.
Yeah.
Because I guess in everyday life you'd be like, okay, well I'm feeling a little bit like I want to be cozy, so you can wear a jumper. Yeah. But you can take it to that extreme of I'm going to wear the feathers today. I'm going to embrace that winter season.
Yeah.
Or it's getting a bit warmer now. Let's wear the very minimal latex. I want to be powerful.
Wow. You say wear sweaters in winter, but in winter I was still wearing latex. I was still on the door like
latex in the cold is freezing.
Yes, it really is. She's committed though. She's committed.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. I think I was leaving. I think it was Torture Garden. It gets a mention. It has to. I think it was like 5 a.m. This is going back about, 12 years ago. Okay. And I was wearing a latex like catsuit. And it I thought, wear a coat on the top.
Yeah.
And then when I went outside, I went, I might as well be in a freaking freezer.
Yeah.
I was so cold. It took me the rest of the day and a hot bath to actually warm up again.
No, you always see me if I'm wearing latex with a big shaggy fur coat on top. I look a bit like a pimp, but I like to stand outside like chain smoking. I love it.
It's a nice look.
Yeah. Latex isn't a seasonal thing, so we're around.
Yes. Yeah. I do love a bit of latex.
Get it.
I know. Yes, definitely. In school, I think for a lot of people, they're just like, it's so institutionalized. You're going through the motions and you're trying to get the grades, or in my case, I was just too busy trying to point my feet under the table because I had my career set. So I was like, there is this big picture. So I could see the big picture, if you like. But for a lot of people, they're just like, what am I going to do with my life? And for some people, you're like, I know there's something big.
Yeah.
I don't know quite what it is yet.
Yeah.
And that, again, that's an excitement, but it's a mindset as well.
Yeah.
It's got to be something that you're excited to go out into the big open world and create and put your stamp on it. And my God, have you done it already at the tender age of 22? My goodness.
Well, it's just like when I looked at people like Lady Gaga, the kind of stuff they were doing at 22, I'm like, Jesus, like I want to be working. I want to be like hustling. I want to be like developing, creating, growing. And it's just so bizarre because like all my friends are like 27, 28, but I just don't gel with people my age because I'm always just like thinking what's next. I'm always like trying to like push things and like grow, not just as a performer, but as a person myself. You know what I mean? So still just a baby, but
but very, I don't want to say mature because I don't really like that word so much, but you've evolved so much for someone of your age. And I think that is because, like you said, you're always changing, thinking about your next move, the big picture, and I think that does really ground someone for liftoff, you know?
Being a performer, like being able to create kind of like a massive project of love, which is, you know, I'm still finding out about myself through my creativity, which is such a crazy thing. It's such a weird thing to try and understand, but just being able to create projects that are so, you know, they feel like your little babies. Like each of my numbers feel like my little babies because the amount of work that has gone into them. I think just having the freedom to create and have other people experience that and enjoy that, it feels like a kind of love that you just can't buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's so personal to every performer as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, choosing your music, your choreography, your costumes, it's incredible. It's a hell of a lot of work, though. It really, really, really is, isn't it?
That's why everyone stands out so well, though, because it's like you can really tell who a person is by when they walk on stage. You're like, you know, like when Daniela comes on, with her rock tunes, she's going, I know her.
Yeah.
So honestly, it's like such a grand thing. It really is.
Yeah. My next guest educated me so much on the sacrifices a conductor makes when conducting a ballet. It was an incredible conversation, and it started to heal a part of me that I didn't even know needed healing from leaving the ballet company. His lead conductor, Paul Murphy.
The biggest lesson I learned was doing Act 2 of The Nutcracker in concert, where I finally felt I could purge myself of all these slow tempi and do it exactly as the metronome marks were in the score, as Tchaikovsky so say intended. And I remember doing this and thinking, finally, I've done the trip back like this. Finally, the Arabian dance I can pick up, etc., etc. And I came off and I felt so flat.
Oh.
Because I realized that actually the success of Act 2 of Nutcracker is the applause between the numbers. And the applause between the numbers is because of the dance layer on top of the music. So actually the musical compromises that we make, I wouldn't say they don't matter. Of course they matter if they go ridiculously too slow, which is sometimes the case in some versions. But you need it. You need the dance element. And if you walk it through it, as is written in the score, especially the Arabian dance, is frighteningly fast. In the New York City Ballet Balanchine version, I'm pretty sure it's just one Arabian dancer, a female, and with finger symbols. And that choreography is pretty much what Tchaikovsky wrote. And if you factor in, you know, the idea of making it pas de deux or pas de trois, it's not going to be so easy to do that tempo.
Yeah. Be impossible for us to move that quickly.
Absolutely. And that's how Peter conceived it. So what we try and do in that case is we try and reach a compromise. So we are constantly saying, okay, I understand this is how it was made. Can we just try and maybe just an edge quicker? And in some cases the other way, you know, very often in ballet, because it's something that's mise en scène, or I'll give you an example, polonaise. Now, this is something that has always sort of slightly riled me, because the polonaise should be slow.
Yeah.
The polonaise is a slow, stately dance in 3/4. It should never be quick. And there are ballet polonaises where we're constantly asked to move it on. Please, you can moving it on. And again, it's asking that question. I understand you're just walking around in a circle. This particular polonaise, I'm thinking of Act 3 of Sleeping Beauty.
Oh yeah,
with all the
swish.
Yeah, when they all come on.
Yes.
But really, what Tchaikovsky's intention was to make it steady. And of course, to make the production work, we can't do as steady as we like. So I always ask for a little bit of a compromise and not be held to skeleton all the way through it.
Yeah. It's incredible to learn. But what do you think is the most incredible part of your job?
Well, I think the most incredible part is to be in the middle of the most incredible music. There are some scores which are a gift for a conductor. I'm thinking the three actors, I'm thinking obviously Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
I'm thinking Cinderella.
Yeah.
Those are two standouts. Okay, they both happen to be about Prokofiev. And to be just in the middle of that, regardless of it being a ballet, is such a thrill.
Yeah.
And then if you put the extra layer on top, on the, I wouldn't say rare nights, but it's not every night, where it all comes together. You have a cast that were basically just in sync. They're going with the flow of the music. You're compromising to the correct amount. And everything is working. And also, you know, like yourself, our standards are very high. And we have some really amazing shows. We have some shows that we'd rather forget immediately. It's just the nature of it being live theatre. And that's generally not the fault of any individuals. It's just like performance. And sometimes those shows you come off and you think, oh dear, and then other people say, hey, it was amazing tonight. So it's your own personal standards. But on those occasions where you feel it's gone very well, everyone on stages are high, and you feel that you get such a buzz from the music. The orchestra are obviously playing to the top of their game. That's a pretty special moment. And you tend to be on a high for a while afterwards, and then you only have to do about the next day. But yeah, that is a real thrill, and also performing in certain venues as well. I mean, the Royal Opera House. I mean, it's a beautiful venue.
It is,
and it's my heart rate increases just as I walk onto that place. I mean, you think of the amount of superstar conductors who've been there. Just, it's such an honor and a privilege to actually be in the theatre. I've been very lucky. I've conducted there. I've got La Scala, which is a beautiful acoustic as well. The Teatro Colón in Argentina. Again, I think there's a real acoustic thrills and beautiful buildings. Yeah, so the venue can also sort of contribute to that special evening. Conducting for ballet is a collaborative role. So you need to be a good people person. Of course, it's a leadership job, because at the end of the day, you're directing. You know, you have to stand up there, be responsible, and sort of do the job as a leader. But you've got to collaborate with every department to make it really function. Stage management, choreographers, directors, individual dancers, and of course your colleagues in the orchestra. So the whole thing, I always use this analogy for conducting for ballet, which is, imagine a bicycle wheel, a push bike. It's a beautiful thing to see those spokes going round and round. And imagine you stick a stick in it. What's going to happen? It's going to stop. That someone's going to fall off. The stick's going to break. And that basically is what happens in ballet if the conductor steps outside of the box too much. So you have to be a partner as well as a leader. And that's where the job is slightly different to opera, because in opera, the conductor is kind of the boss, and can overrule a lot of the decision making if he or she is not happy with it. In ballet, of course, you have to have your say, you have to direct, and ultimately the two people who are running the show are the conductor and the stage manager. If you think about it, we are responsible for running the show, but we can't stick our wooden stick, if you like, into the spoke of the wheel, because it doesn't function. So you have to be generous. You have to be very flexible, and also, tough when you need to be tough, but gentle toughness, because ultimately you still are a leader. So you have to be coercive, but not. Someone said to me, if you become a dance conductor, you have to put your ego in a box and lock it away. Well, that is basically true, although there are times where we have to stand up for the music. So, because it can't be a free-for-all either. You are responsible for the quality of the music and the flow of the music.
For those of you that know me really, really well, or have listened to several of my podcasts, you will know that I love music and raving. And with my next guest, the wonderful Luke Sinclair, we talk all things music and raving. I love the way he describes his love for the industry, and this particular section was a definite highlight. I'm at a rave, that is the bit when it's like the music's intensifying and you're waiting for it to drop, but you're really enjoying that moment right before it.
Yeah.
And then when it does, just it does something to
Well, the
me.
lights go up and everyone's hands in the air, and you can see the whites in people's eyes where they're going, like the shock of it, because it's like, can it get any more intense? Oh, it is getting more intense.
Yeah.
And so that's why, we were talking about like set prep. A lot of there's a lot of DJs that I know that will have folders ready for gigs, but they like to adapt as they go. I have done that if I know that there's a set that maybe a DJ before me has gone in a completely different direction to what I expected. Then you have to adapt.
Yeah.
But for the gigs that I've played in the States with Summarized, I'll kind of know, depending on what time I'm playing as well. Obviously, that's quite important.
Mm-hmm.
I really like to sort of take my time with the building, like the sort of foundation of the set, those first 3 or 4 tracks, just getting people nicely going, not going too hard straight away. And then by track 5, you've got them where they're just kind of like, okay, they're vibing with this. And I know we were talking about holding on to that crowd is part of the challenge. You can feel like, these tracks have got to be perfectly aligned. Like a jigsaw puzzle, or like, just like links in a chain.
Yeah.
That's got to make sure that, by the time you're at track 5 or 6, that the people are there and they've made the decision to stay in your room if you're in a multi-room venue, or not to go outside for a cigarette, or not to go to the bar for another round. Or they can, but they're going to come straight
if you're
back.
really thirsty, go.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean, though. I've actually been to several events where the set is that good that my phone doesn't come out. I've actually been at a point where I'm like, I must tell my friends to come into this room, but I couldn't even get my phone out because I felt like I was missing it. Wouldn't go to the bar. You're just like, I'm staying here. I ain't going anywhere. And it's so amazing when you feel that way. But there are times when you go, okay, I'm going to go and get a drink or something like that. And it's not always the DJ's fault. It can be that you just thirsty or need a wee. But I know what you mean. Like, to have them on that sweet spot, that journey, that captivating state, it's unbreakable when you get that.
Sometimes it's difficult because there might be a couple of tracks where you know that it's a good transition, but there might have been more energy in the track before, and then you have to sort of try and replicate that energy in that track. So you might have to start it a bit later on, but also people are human, and if they're dancing non-stop for half an hour, after half an hour they're going to be like but the point is then to, in some sets, give them a little breather, just let them vibe, give them a little breather before the next big bit comes in. That can also be as important, because if you've got literally just an hour or even more than that of just drum rolls and people are like
it's a bit too intense, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's a fine line, and I find that so much fun. Like getting that sort of, I don't know if this is, I've spoken to other DJs. I think a lot of DJs go down the folder route and go, I think I'll play this, but I'm not 100%. Usually I've done about 4 or 5 drafts of what that set's going to be, and I won't know until usually the day or the day before. That's my set list. So and then something might creep in at the last minute and go, do you know what, that track that I haven't played in a while, that's gonna work. So then you have a last minute, but I'm very meticulous with it, and I find it almost as enjoyable as the gig, because then you can just I'll be there with my little AirPods in on my laptop, just on my settee going, and just imagining that I've got the crowd in front of me, and that for me, I'm like, okay, that's gonna work. And it's almost like I feel like a sort of like a crazy professor. Like making like the perfect potion, like, I feel like sometimes that's what you feel like. You feel so like it takes over you. The music takes over you, and you just feel like, okay, I'm not going to stop until this is absolutely perfect.
My next guest is an incredible inspiration to the arts. And in this chat, he talks about his experience being at the Royal Ballet School and becoming a choreographer. His explanation of dance and choreography is simply captivating. Here's my old boss, Sir David Binley.
All of those things made me go, I want to be in the ballet. And then, of course, everybody said, well, you're not good enough and you won't be able to, and all of that. And that just made me even more determined.
Yeah.
So I got to better teachers. I got to more classical teachers, and set my sights on getting to the Royal Ballet School, the upper school, because I was too old. Hadn't started dancing till I was 10, 11, which is usually the age, as you know, that you would go to a vocational school like the Royal Ballet Junior School. But I got to the senior school, skin of my teeth, and that was it. I didn't have a great time there. I had a difficult time there, but managed to get into Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet, as much through my acting ability and the fact that I had, by the time I was 18 or 19, I'd had something like 14 years of stage experience. So that was a rarity for somebody coming out of the Royal Ballet School, because you don't get many opportunities to do anything except basically class and, come out of what we thought of as the sausage factory at that time. The right height, the right look, the right physical attributes. I had none of them. Really? But I had all of this other stuff. And choreography. I mean, even at that age, I didn't know what a choreographer was. I didn't know what a choreographer did, but I was a choreographer and I was doing it. I was just telling people what to do, just bossing people about. I found I liked that. No, but that was all there in the background. So, when it came to being spotted, it wasn't for being spotted for the usual things. Every week for 3 weeks running in Manchester, I used to go to a ballet class there and came out after and went to see Cabaret. And I think I was only about 14, 15 at the time. So I shouldn't have been let in because it was X-rated.
Yes, I was going to say.
I just fell in love with that film.
Yeah.
And when it came to doing the song and dance number, because the first school I went to used to do all those dance festivals. So I had song and dance numbers. And I said, I want to do that. I want to do this character and these songs. So I did that, and I won the All England song and dance competition. Yes. And I did that number on one of these school shows at the end. And at that point, the headmistress of the school really didn't like me, really thought I had nothing. Most people had written me off. I'd had a pretty serious knee operation. I had a meniscectomy. Almost immediately I went to the school at the Christmas of the start of that season, and then was left out of pretty much everything. And then I did this number at the end of the year, and everybody just went. And that sort of changed my life. I enjoyed being a dancer. It hurt a lot because I never had the physical equipment. Injury was never far away from what I did, but I did do some wonderful roles, things like Petrushka and the Ashton things, Bottom in the Dream, Widow Simone, and Elaine. So I did virtually all of the roles that were there, that the kind of dancer I was, that I could have done.
Yeah.
And that was all exciting, but I never thought of myself as anything other than a choreographer. That was the thing that was always in my mind, that I was always thinking forwards about. And, Peter, I thank so much, because he gave me so many opportunities. And even when I fell down, the next opportunity was there. So he kept giving me the chances to choreograph, and I kept improving, because you don't make masterpieces in your first 2 or 3 efforts. And he just kept giving me the opportunities. So I always had those goals on the horizon.
Yeah.
And that never changed really up until when I left BRB and just became, a rather aging freelance choreographer. But even then, that has only changed in the past 6 months. I now do not have a new piece on the horizon for the first time since I was 19.
Wow.
Which
you finally get a break.
Well, and that's the way I'm looking at it. Yeah. So yeah. And choreography is all embracing, because you're thinking about designers, composers, all of the collaborators. If it's with different companies, it's a different kind of setup. So it's like a military campaign. It takes a lot of planning to come to a piece. I was interested in the full-length ballet from very early on, and again, I got the chance to make pieces very early on. And it's a completely different thing. It's like, well, how do you write a novel? Well, you don't just sit down and write a novel. I mean, you've got to write short stories. You've got to write a lot before you even. And then when you're writing a novel, how do you do that? You say, oh, page 1. No, of course not. I've never written a novel, but I imagine that you've got the last page in mind even before you've got the first page in mind. And that's very much how it works with a full-length piece.
Right.
It's almost too complicated to go into. And I'm sure people do it in very differing ways. Whenever people ask me to mentor or tell people about choreography, all I can say is, look, all I can tell you is how I do it, because I work differently to everybody else. I think differently to everybody else. An idea, very rarely a piece of music anymore. Maybe in the early days when you find a piece of music that you're trying to squash and condense and find another bit and stick that on and it's not the way to do it. And I know that, but then again, I know a lot of people who are very experienced that do it in exactly that same way. I can't do it that way, because the first thing for me is the idea. It's hard enough to get an idea which satisfies everything that a full-length ballet will. It has to have kind of certain things.
Yeah.
You're putting it in front of a paying audience. Is this a piece which is going to attract an audience? Is this a piece which is even going to sell tickets? Well, if it's called Cinderella, yes, it is. If it's called Aladdin, yes, it is. If it's called Edward II, no, it isn't. So, you're not going to say, right, I'm going to make Edward II for a touring company that has to put a lot of bums on seats and it has a family audience. I didn't make that ballet for that company. I made it for the Stuttgart Ballet. What subject, what audience, what kind of piece are we making here? Composer, wow. Because as Fred said, Sir Fred, your music is 80% of it. You get the wrong score or you get a horrible score, that's going to turn people off straight away.
Yeah.
So finding the right composer, that's a huge thing. And sometimes I'll find a composer that I think, in the case of a composer I worked with called Sally Beamish, where I just heard her music and I thought, she could write a ballet. I'd love to work with this person. Wow. Beauty and the Beast, which I did. An idea which I'd had for 20 odd years. I knew it had to have a new score, because you can't just go and pick out music and just squash it to your means. It's not satisfying. And then I heard this one piece by a Canadian composer and I just went, that's Beauty and the Beast. That's the sound. That's the sound I want. So then that marriage. And then the journey really starts. Then there's working out the scenario. I break everything down. I make a minutage of it.
Okay.
So I know exactly how long this will last, how long this will last, 30 seconds to tell this piece of narrative, 1 minute, 30 seconds, it's a female variation, 5 minutes for a core number, then you're looking at the length of the piece. Is it 2 acts? Do the climaxes fall twice? Is it 3 acts? It's so complicated.
Yes. The fabulous burlesque performer Cleopatra is a legend. We laughed so much, and I just love her energy. In this section, Cleo tells us how it feels to be on stage and how much she enjoys to break the mold of traditional burlesque. She's so warm and lovable and humble, and you will absolutely fall in love with her within the first few seconds of her speaking. She's fantastic.
I would say Cleopatra is fierce, unapologetic. Cleopatra came about because of my roots as a performer. So I started off as a dancer. I did disco freestyle, street dance when I was younger, African dance. So I wanted to come up with a style of burlesque that fused all of that, bringing all my upbringing into that. And yeah, Cleo was born. I'd say it took about 2 years for me to figure out my branding and who Cleo was. So I always just want to reassure new performers it does take time to find out who you are as a burlesque artist.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I've always grafted. I think being a shorter performer as well, I've been told to just dance bigger and be energetic. And I've just carried that through with all my artistry, really.
Yeah. It's a good point, actually. I remember when I was dancing and people would see me backstage and they go, oh, you're not as tall as you seem on stage because you don't dance big.
Yeah.
Dance big. How do you feel when you're on stage?
Electric. There is no other feeling like it. I genuinely believe, not to sound cheesy, that I was born and made to be on stage. That's all I know. It's in my DNA. It's who I am. It's everything. And there's nothing more incredible to me having that exchange of energy on stage with your audience, making them feel they're really going on a journey with you, with your artistry. It's not just about performing to them, it's making them feel a part of it and connecting with them, which is a big thing for me. So yeah, electric, incredible. I always feel amazing on stage. Thank you everyone that comes to my shows. You make me feel great.
I felt that when I watched you perform, that you really, really connect with your audience, and you're so versatile. You've got so many different acts as well. I mean, it's probably a tough question to ask, but which one brings you the most joy?
The most joy, I would have to say both WAP, because of the history I've had with her, and my 90s raver act, which is just all I knew you were gonna be happy that I mentioned that one. I've had such a journey with her as well. She's still fairly new. But again, that is me. When I'm not Cleo, and I'm not going to say my muggle name on this, but when I'm me, that's me. That's me at a festival, just an idiot, just in my little tracksuit, bobbing around, raving.
I love the way that your act started as well on the side. You're just there and throwing out the glow sticks, and I was just like, this is a bit of me. I loved it.
I love to make acts that are like relatable and people can relate to and just find joy in. That means a lot to me. It's a branch out of me 100%, and I always want my acts to be me. I think when I first started out, I was trying to do a lot of classic, and when I was finding my branding, I wasn't quite sure who I was as a burlesque artist yet.
Yeah.
And when someone reassured me that I could be me, that's all I really needed, just a bit of reassurance that this is actually fine if you pursue, a burlesque career in this sort of path. You can explore these things like rave culture, because I think a lot of people still see burlesque as, 1920s classic, big feathers. And we said we wouldn't swear. I want to fudge the system. Fudge the system.
Yes.
I want to try something different. I want to push the boundaries, even if that comes with people telling me what I do isn't burlesque. I don't care. I think I just want to shift something. I want something to evolve. I want something to flourish in what I do. And I hope that I'm doing that. And I hope it encourages other newer artists to really push the boundaries of whether they're doing drag, burlesque, circus.
Yeah.
We should always constantly be pushing.
Yes.
Yeah.
My last guest in this episode is someone that I have admired for a while. She's so passionate and caring about the industry and does all she can to make it better. Anna Morgan is a dance teacher and is deeply committed to elevating the culture of dance, both in educational settings and the professional industry. This is definitely a chat that I struggled to condense because there was just so much value in it. But please check it out, the full one. It's absolutely worth it. And a special thank you to Anna for being a wonderful teacher and having such a positive impact on dancers today. The students specifically that don't feel as confident as the positive ones, is because I remember, I'd be stood at the front.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was partly made to, partly there because it's what I knew and I enjoyed it. But I remember a few students who were just, if not more talented than I was, but they lacked that confidence that I had. So how do you handle those students?
Yeah, I think it's, in an ideal world, it is about getting to know our students. And I would love the idea of this holistic approach where we can really understand what's driving our students, because sometimes they are confident and they might be confident in certain settings, but their particular learning style is that hanging at the back and learning it in a less outwardly appearing confident way might be the thing that is most helpful to them. And I think I'm learning that more and more now, that I think we, in our generation, we had to almost put on an appearance of learning. Like I remember constantly being told, like, you're all right, what's wrong with you? Because my like concentration phase was very intense. I'm just learning it. And now I think that we don't need, the students in class are not there for our benefit as teachers. They're not there to serve our egos, that they're all nodding and smiling at us and making us feel like we're this important being. That's not what we're here for. We're here to actually help them facilitate their learning. So if someone needed to be at the back and that's actually helping them, fine. And it's working out that, is it a case of lack of confidence and that I actually do need to empower you and bring you forwards? Or is it a case that you actually genuinely learn better in that setting? So I think that's where we've got to look a bit further around it. It can't just be like a black and white.
Oh my God. That's so fascinating. And if any of those people at the back of the class are listening to my show, I would be curious to know, because absolutely. We had to swap lines and they would be quite anxious coming to the front, but maybe potentially because they were more comfortable learning from a distance, and maybe they needed to see not just the teacher demonstrating, but how the other dancers in front were moving, so that they could maybe pinch little ideas or styles. Like there's something to that. I never thought about.
Yeah, it might be their method. And I like you, I loved being in the front. I was probably that dancer that they had to say, like, come on, let's rotate lines now and get to the back. And I just loved it. And I loved the challenge of not having anyone to copy and all of those things. But for some dancers, they say you've got a visual learner, they might need, like you say, those rows in front of them before it becomes their go. And actually that is a strategy that's valid, because what I'm trying to always empower out of the dancers is, it doesn't matter. We're all trying to arrive at the same place. Now, someone might just get there so easily and someone else might have to get there in a much more difficult way. And that could be a cognitive thing. It could be a physical thing, whatever. But however we have to get there, it doesn't matter. It's all valid. So if you do need a little bit longer, you're learning a strategy that you can then take. If you do go into the industry, you can then take that, okay, I have to do this, or I need to record it, or I need to take notes, or whatever the thing is for you and your style. The most important thing is empowering the dancers to have the freedom to experiment, so they know what they do best.
Yeah. You've spoken about your recent diagnosis with ADHD and a theory that dancers are drawn to ballet because of their ADHD and not in spite of it. Can you tell me more?
Yeah, so there's a lot of research being done about this at the minute. So I think in the coming years, anything that I'm theorising will hopefully have some evidence to kind of back it up. But I think we probably all accept that neurodivergence does lend itself to certain activities and maybe then certain jobs, such as the arts. Because if you are a person who, like, think of that child, I know, because my eldest son is very much like this. He he feels everything deeply. You think of that child that is, you're saying, oh my gosh, they're so dramatic and they get emotionally dysregulated. Maybe they're having a meltdown, and people in the past would be saying like, oh, bring it out, get that child on stage for goodness sake. That was always the kind of thing. You have a dramatic child, you put them on stage, and maybe didn't realize that there might be a reason why that child is being dramatic. And it's quite interesting because I actually didn't. So I've literally, this has been in the last sort of few months, this year, that I've been diagnosed with ADHD, and it's like I've had fuzzy glasses on my whole life, and now everything in my life has become clear. All of my experiences, the way my brain works, it's been pretty revolutionary for me.
Wow.
In a very positive way for me. I feel
that.
like it really, it's really kind of enhanced my quality of life and my ability to do everything, which is fantastic. But I've learned so much about it that I honestly didn't know, particularly ADHD, which is actually quite scary because I've been trained in all of these things, of course, for my job. I've done plenty of training and neurodivergence, and what I didn't understand about ADHD was that there's such a emotional and like an emotional and social contingent to it. I thought that was exclusive to autism. So I thought if you had ASD, of course, there's social and emotional facets that go with that. But I thought with ADHD, it was what it says on the tin: attention deficit hyperactivity. So I felt like, well, I don't have those. I'm not, I haven't got an attention deficit. Well, what I've learned now is that I do, but only for things I'm not interested in, which is absolutely the case for ADHD. It's not necessarily an attention deficit, it's an attention overload. So you can't start the things that you're not interested in, but you can't stop the things that you are interested in. So you get in these like hyper-focused states where you're obsessed with something. Well, that works well for us in our industry because we have to have these, creative ideas and then get obsessed with them and go all in on them. And the hyperactivity thing, particularly in women, doesn't necessarily have to be this vision of this like 8-year-old boy bouncing off the walls in a classroom. It can be that. And that was what it was always researched on. It was only ever researched on male children, really. But for women in particular, the hyperactivity can be in our brains. So it's that like constant state of overwhelm, this hyper-driven need to do things all the time. And then there's this whole social component and emotional component where you're more kind of sensitive to rejection. You feel your feelings more deeply. You might hear a piece of music. Like I've always felt like when I hear a piece of music and someone else, particularly outside of the world that we're in, hears that same piece of music, they like it. And I'm encompassed by, it's totally engrossed into me. It's in my fibre of my being. I'm totally moved by it. And I know when you're hearing something that's technical and I'm hearing something that's kind of art, I just feel like it's different. And I always thought that was just because they're not in the industry, and so of course I love music because that's my thing. But now I think, well, no, we do. Neurodivergent people tend to feel things more deeply, and the world is overall more impact, that whole sensitivity of noise and sound and all of those and smell and all those things. It's because we're feeling the world in a much more intense way. Hence why we also then find it difficult to regulate and all those things, because you've got all this all the time. So all that to be said, I think it makes sense that when you are someone that feels deeply, that has that very creative brain that gets hyper-focused, it makes sense that something like dance, the arts, would be somewhere you would go.
What are your views on leaving problems outside the studio? You come in studio and people go, you're here to dance. Leave your shit outside the door. Deal with that later. Just curious to know what your views are on that.
It's funny, I've had quite a few conversations about this recently when I'm training teachers, because they've asked me, well, is that okay to say or not? And my view is it depends on the delivery and the intention behind the delivery. But in a nutshell, probably no, I don't agree with it. I think there's something to be said about having a sanctuary for yourself. We've all been there where something is going on and you come in and you put your hand on the bar and you feel like, back home. I think there is something to be said for that. So if it's your choice to come in and leave your, other outside life away and just focus on yourself, I think that's totally valid and great. I think that as teachers, we do need to encourage that people come into the class and create a mind-body connection, just from a safety perspective. If we are absent-minded, we're going to be more likely to be injured. We're not going to get the best results if we don't connect the two. So I think those two things stand. But again, a bit like we were saying earlier with, the neurodivergence, it's who is it for? Because I think a lot of the time when teachers have said that, it's because they can't be bothered with the drama. Like, I don't want to hear your drama.
Yeah.
Leave it at the door.
Yes.
Come in and deliver.
Seems more like that.
I think it's that. And I think if you're saying it like that, then it's no. Like, I care about your wider life. I want you to feel well. And if you don't feel like you can be in class today, then maybe it's not right to be here. Or if you feel like you can be in class, but you can participate in only a certain way, then we'll discuss that. And then that's how you would do it. And maybe you say to me, and I have students say this all the time, I want to be here. I don't feel like I can accept feedback today. Right. Fine. And, obviously, if that was something that was happening all the time, we'd have a discussion about, well, where are we going with that? But, I'd rather they were there and that there was a continuity and that they're hearing what we're learning and everything. So, yeah, I think in general, I'm not on board with leave your problems at the door. But I think there's another way we can frame it, which is like, let's all be here and use this space and find a positive space and safe space, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. It did feel like, you're here to dance.
Yeah.
So you dance.
Yeah. Don't think.
Just dance.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about dance.
Get
nothing
on with
else. But yeah, it does filter in, and it did filter in.
Mm-hmm.
And quite interesting you said about injury. I started to get more injured when my mental health was suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really linked the two. But of course, I wasn't concentrating as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot.
It's huge, yeah. Hopefully I'll always feel like this, but I don't feel threatened by change. I feel excited by change. And that, again, maybe it's an ADHD thing that I want to be constantly changing. But like, I love when a new theory comes in that actually debunks everything that I've been doing for 10 years. That doesn't feel threatening personally to me. I feel like, oh, exciting.
Yeah.
I can upload. And there's so many things that, I was doing or saying 10 years ago, which I now know that's not the current science or that's not whatever. And I'm totally happy to have my mind changed and persuaded in a different direction. So I love that, like, ever evolving side of teaching.
I totally agree. And now that I'm studying, obviously, to be a counsellor, there's a lot of ways that I used to think that I've now let go of, and holding on to grudges and anger towards people and the whole acceptance. I'm just like, I'm just loving every tiny little bit of this. It's just groundbreaking.
So much freedom in that.
Oh, I know. Knowing thyself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you to every single guest I've had the pleasure of chatting to over the past year. The show simply wouldn't be what it is without you. I am so honoured. All details of each fabulous guest in this show, plus the full episodes, are in the show notes. And if you could please all do me a favour and hit the subscribe button and give it a 5-star review, I'd really appreciate it, and it really massively helps to boost the show. I would also love to know who has been your favourite guest so far. So head to my Instagram page, which is backstagepass.podcast, and get in touch. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.